Did you know that the terrorist group Hezbollah owns a shopping mall in Paraguay? Did you know that Iran influences South American Muslims ideologically through cultural centers and mosques? The Islamic Republic of Iran has a considerable presence in Latin America, especially in South America. Iranian proxy groups, like the Lebanese terror group Hezbollah, have even set up training camps in the region. Regimes with an anti-American orientation like Bolivia and Venezuela have aided and abetted Iran and its proxies in its activities throughout Latin America. Local organized crime groups have likewise worked with Iran and Iranian proxies. In this video, we're going to examine Iranian influence in Latin America and just how deep it goes. Before we get started, a quick word from my sponsor, Ground News. If you're like me, you consume a lot of news articles. But in an age of clickbait, media bias, and sharp political polarization, you have to sift through a lot of noise. That's where Ground News comes in. Ground News is an app and website that compares news articles from around the world and allows users to spot media bias and reduce ideological blind spots. You can get a breakdown of how news sources covering a story are slanted politically, reduce blind spots by seeing which stories are underreported by left-wing or right-wing news sources, and customize your feed to see news stories you care about. For instance, this story on the killing of a high-level Hezbollah commander by Israeli forces was mostly covered by right-wing media outlets. Meanwhile, this story about an ongoing manpower shortage in the IDF was primarily reported on by left-leaning news sources. Ground News helps me see a complete picture. Click the link in the description box and get 15% off your subscription when you join Ground News today. With my thanks to Ground News, back to the video. For the sake of brevity, this video will focus on the Islamic Republic's relations with Latin America after 1979. Let's start with the beginning of the 21st century. Under President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, Iran cultivated relationships with various Latin American countries, more specifically those swept up by the region's pink tide. The pink tide refers to a series of new, more left-leaning governments ascending to power in the region. These left-leaning heads of state, including Hugo Chavez of Venezuela and Bolivia's Evo Morales, were brought closer to Iran through a shared antipathy toward the United States. Brazil's relationship with Iran is worth exploring. Brasilia is Tehran's biggest trading partner in the region. Iran has been supplying Brazil with fertilizers, and even more so after February of 2022, when supplies from Russia were disrupted. Iran, meanwhile, has imported significant amounts of meat and grains from Brazil. Once Lula da Silva and the Workers' Party returned to power in 2023, Iran and Brazil formed an even closer relationship. Interestingly enough, Brazil has allowed Iranian warships to make port calls in Rio de Janeiro. The country is home to around 200,000 Muslims, though the majority are ethnic Arabs or local converts. Venezuela is another state in South America that has deep ties to Tehran. The Iranians have furnished weapons to Caracas, including drones, warships, and missiles. Iran provides expertise on counterintelligence and torture to the Venezuelans too. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, is embedded within the Venezuelan security establishment and has been for some time. Shockingly, or perhaps not shockingly, Caracas has permitted Iranian agents to use the country's territory as staging grounds to plan attacks on U.S. soil. Banks and other financial institutions based in Venezuela have performed financial services for Iran's defense sector, which is under U.S. sanctions. After the U.S. imposed sanctions on Venezuela's state-owned oil firm PDVSA, the Venezuelans paid Iran in gold bars for the latter's restoration of the country's gas refineries. In June 2022, Tehran and Caracas signed a 20-year cooperation agreement. This agreement entails cooperation in oil and petrochemicals, defense, and agriculture, just to name a few areas. The fact that both Venezuela and Iran are sanctioned by the US provides a further basis for collaboration between the two. Bolivia is among the countries in the region courted by Tehran. In July 2023, Bolivia and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding to, quote-unquote, expand bilateral cooperation in the field of security and defense. The two agreed to work together in the area of border security, with Iran transferring drones to Bolivia for border surveillance purposes. Bolivia has been accused of giving Iranian nationals with military and intelligence backgrounds fake passports in order to allow them greater freedom to operate in South America. Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah has cashed in on Bolivia's role in the region's cocaine trade. More on that later in the video though. There have been South American countries who are not so sympathetic to the Iranians. One such country is Argentina. In 1992, Hezbollah bombed the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires. In 1994, Hezbollah bombed the Jewish center in Buenos Aires too. Recently elected Argentinian President Javier Milei is an outspoken supporter of Israel and has vowed to bring the perpetrators of the 1994 bombing to justice. It should also be noted that despite the trade ties between Iran and Brazil, most Brazilians, about 80% of them, have a negative opinion of Iran according to a 2015 Pew poll. Brazilians have a much more positive opinion of Israel and the US than of Iran. Iran-backed proxy forces like Hezbollah maintain a presence in South America's criminal underworld and even wage their struggle right in America's backyard. The Tehran-backed Shia terrorist group Hezbollah are embedded in several Latin American countries. Of particular importance to us are Hezbollah's activities in South America. One country where Hezbollah is especially active is Paraguay. The city of Ciudad del Este is home to a sizable Arab migrant community, mostly from Lebanon and Syria. Ciudad del Este is in the tri-border area of Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil. In 2006, the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned a shopping mall in the city owned by a local Hezbollah commander. This shopping center was also home to a number of other Hezbollah-controlled businesses. Hezbollah uses this shopping center to raise funds for its terrorist activities, as well as for money laundering. In April 2006, Paraguayan media reported that millions of dollars were being funneled from the country to the Middle East. Paraguay's lax law enforcement practices have allowed Hezbollah and transnational crime entities to have free reign in the tri-border area. Hezbollah is known to have training camps in the region and have recruited from among the local Arab population. According to an article from the Wilson Center, from its base in Ciudad del Este, Paraguay, it set up illicit enterprises to fund its operations in the Middle East and elsewhere, including money laundering, counterfeiting, piracy, and drug trafficking. Another country with a Hezbollah presence is Brazil. Almost a month after the October 7th attacks, Brazilian authorities uncovered a plot by alleged Hezbollah members to attack Jewish targets in that country. A Brazilian security official remarked, "Around 1 million Lebanese Shiites in Foz do Iguaçu, Sao Paulo, and Curitiba maintain close ties with Hezbollah. Hezbollah operatives are able to blend in with the local Lebanese diaspora, some of whom shelter Hezbollah fighters as well as aid and abet their operations." Disturbingly, ties between Hezbollah and Brazil's largest organized crime syndicate, the PCC, were discovered by Brazilian media. Hezbollah members have used Iranian cultural associations and mosques in the country as recruiting grounds too. It warrants mentioning that Brazil's anti-terrorism enforcement still leaves much to be desired. Chile is one other country with Hezbollah members operating within it. Chilean ports are frequently used by Iranian vessels. It is through these ports that drugs are smuggled into the region and Hezbollah money is laundered. The city of Iquique is a hub for money laundering as well as smuggling of drugs and people. Iranian cultural centers and mosques in Chile act as mouthpieces for the Iranian government and its proxies. To some, this may sound similar to the role Confucius Institutes play for the Chinese government. Bolivia plays a vital role in Hezbollah's operations in South America. After President Evo Morales expelled the DEA from his country, Iran stepped up to fill the void. In Guarnes, Bolivia, the Bolivian government started a quote-unquote anti-imperialist military academy. This academy was started with Iranian funding and support. The military academy aimed to provide training in asymmetric warfare for the countries of the ALBA, or Bolivarian Alliance of the Americas. This is a regional grouping that includes countries like Venezuela, Cuba, Bolivia, and Nicaragua. According to an October 2022 Jerusalem Post article, it is important to remember that Hezbollah is a legal party in Lebanon, but part of the organization is illegal in much of the world, and after the Middle East, its second largest center of operations is in Latin America. The money that it earns from illegal activities there finances about 60 or 70% of its operations. It is alleged that Hezbollah operates training facilities in Venezuela as well. For Latin American policymakers, Hezbollah's operations are low on their list of priorities. For American and European policymakers, their anti-terrorism efforts are focused mainly on the Middle East and North Africa. Actors like Venezuela's Maduro regime and Hezbollah have capitalized on this. In 2011, a Hezbollah-controlled criminal network in Colombia and Venezuela was uncovered, resulting in 130 arrests and the seizure of $23 million moved through the Lebanese-Canadian bank. A notable Shia businessman and Hezbollah operative named Ali Mohammed Saleh was at the head of this criminal organization. Saleh controlled the illicit drugs and arms markets in Maicao, Colombia, near the Venezuelan border. Venezuelan drug cartels associated with Nicolas Maduro's regime profited from this cross-border trade also. Ghazi Nassereddin, a Lebanese Venezuelan who rose to a high rank in Venezuela's diplomatic service, facilitated contact between Hezbollah and the government in Caracas. Allegedly, Hezbollah and the Colombian armed group FARC engaged in drugs for gun schemes with the knowledge and support of Caracas. According to an article by the Atlantic Council, the Rada, Saleh, and Nassereddin clans are part of a much larger global illicit network of fixers, financiers, and facilitators for Hezbollah, operating out of Venezuela with protection from the Maduro regime. Members of 2 of the 3 clans have been designated by the U.S. Treasury Department as global terrorists for their ties to Hezbollah. In October 2018, the U.S. Justice Department listed Hezbollah as one of the top 5 transnational criminal organizations. Hezbollah is using the Western Hemisphere as a base for its terrorist actions, sustaining itself right under America's nose. Iran's actions in Latin America are worthy of further examination and should be a cause for greater concern. A radical Islamic revolutionary regime and one of its proxies are operating and supporting themselves with the knowledge and assistance of anti-American governments in the region. As tensions between Israel and by extension the US and Iran continue to flare up, there could be serious consequences that reach much further than the Middle East. What do you guys think? What can be done to curtail Iran's activities in the region? Will Iran or Iran-backed entities step up attacks against American and Israeli targets in the Western Hemisphere? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.